Okay, so the changes that came out for July 1st actually were not nearly as dramatic as many changes as we thought they would be. So this part of it is not going to take very long. We are expecting another round of new documents in August. So I will do another class on that when that comes out. But I'm going to go ahead and review some of the changes that have to do with our listing check work. So checklist. So starting with the CDIF, the major changes are basically the only changes are they updated some of the websites that are in here, and those are the ones that are listed in blue. A really good tool, and if we're not as agents familiar with those websites, it's kind of hard to steer our clients in that direction. So just wanted to point that out. Maybe if you have time, take a look at the websites and get familiar with them so that we can best advise our clients. Going to move down through the CDIF. Sorry if I'm going a little fast through here. But that's really the only change on the CDIF. Cybersecurity notice, no changes. Summary of rights, no changes. Come to go through the escrow. All right, standard listing agreement. So we're going to go straight to the the brokerage fee. And they had made some changes that came out in June, or actually as far back as February, but it was a little bit messy. So they actually kind of cleaned this section up to make it a little bit more clear to the clients. So it's essentially broken down into two sections where you see the or, and then section 2, where there's also an or. So in the first one, that is solely information for the listing firm compensation. Side note, they're really pushing us to use the word compensation over commission, and I'm here for that. So the only part of the section that actually says commission rate is right here. But what Lucy has done with the verbiage is put in compensation on the side, and I like that a lot. So it's very simple. We have two check boxes here. The first one will be the one that we're probably using the most because that is a percentage of the purchase price. But if you in your business use a flat fee amount or have an agreement with the seller that it's going to be a flat fee, you would enter that right in here. Coming down to section 2, this is for the selling firm / buyer's agent. Again, we have the option of the percentage and a flat fee if that's what the sellers want to pay a buyer's agent instead. If anybody wants to have kind of separate conversations about how we're having this conversation with our sellers, I'd be happy to do that kind of separately from this, because I'm working on documents that show our value. And basically, if we run into where we know we're headed into a listing appointment and we know that they've already mentioned or dropped in a conversation, hey, I don't want to pay the full, what used to be 6%. I'm looking to pay less than that. I think we need to be armed with ways to prove our value. So I'm working on a document to show what a client will get from us at 5, 5.5, 6, and 7%. And I've already kind of gone through this with a couple of my clients over the last 6 months. And at the end of the day, even though I came into the conversation with them wanting to offer less, they all pretty much stuck around 6%. So just again, we have to prove our value, and I'd be happy to have conversations or talk about the documents that I'm making at a later time. But I'll stop right here. Jen and Samantha, any of you guys have any questions about this section here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. One of the things that I really love about what we have on our private Facebook page is the fact that as soon as we do get new documents, Lucy goes in and makes these cheat sheets, and they're just always there. So if we're in the middle of, writing something and we're using a disclosure that we just haven't used in a really long time, the cheat sheets really make it super simple to come back and check. And then, of course, you would want to go down to the bottom of every page and just make sure it's the last revised. Hang on one second. Jen, okay. How do I get out of that? All right. So then following this, I'm sorry, I was in the SAER, not in the standard listing agreement. In the standard listing agreement, again, she's filled all of this out to really help us in a pinch, you know, if we're writing an offer on a weekend and have questions. A lot of the information that we need is filled out here in blue, and then she highlights, you know, where we're going to need to drop check boxes, et cetera. There's been a little bit of changes here in the common interest community disclosure. So this section has replaced where it used to be, you know, separate for condo, separate for POA or HOA. It's all really grouped in here into this third section. As far as the standard listing agreement, it's broken down on the CIC document separately. But it's important, obviously, we want to make sure we have a checkbox here. And they've actually put, you know, 14 days within of a written request. A lot of the condo associations are asking for the sellers to pay that fee up front, obviously to protect themselves in case something falls apart. And it is stating a resale certificate, obviously with everything else that's needed to move forward during your contingency for the condo documents and POA documents. But they've grouped them together here to make it easier for us. And then we come down to, hold on one second, I'm just checking my notes. That is really the main thing that has changed in the SLA for now. We expect more changes in August. And I'll do a class. I think I'm going to do it later in the month of August since they might not be releasing the documents right away in the beginning of the month. So under other provisions, just a good reminder here, administrative fee of $450. Sometimes it auto-populates, sometimes it does not. As of right now, our VA buyers still cannot pay this, but that will change August 10th. They will be essentially allowed to, but you know, it's still up to us whether or not we want to charge them that. And then here's where we will disclose if we have any relations with the seller as their agent. I want to come down to the data entry page because we do have some changes here as well. They're subtle and easy to miss, but she did go through and make these cheat sheets. So obviously the list price has to match the standard listing agreement. So if that's something that gets modified before it goes live, definitely don't forget to come back in here and change that here. But we're going to go to down here for disclosures. They've added a few or changed the names. So the CIC is our common interest community disclosure. And this is going to be the one that replaces, you know, the request for condo documents, the ConRes. Coming over here, they've added one for lease pendants. If the sellers know that there's any liens against the property, that must be disclosed. And we all know, even if they don't want to disclose it, it's really just better for the entire transaction and both sides if they do. And then resale certificate has moved over here, has to be checked if this is checked. They go hand in hand. And then we have one other, one second. So page 5, they also made some changes here. And so it's split HOA, POA. I think before February is when they were not split. But just make sure that they're checked here and the amount is what I'm talking about that's split. I believe before they were all in one. And because it's an asterisk, if there is none, and you've marked no here, you still have to put in zeros here or it'll get tagged back to you. So that's what I actually have for changes as of now. I know it's a little bit lackluster, but do either one of you have any questions I can help with? All right. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Feel free to interrupt me if you guys do have any questions, but I'm going to bring up my slides now for open houses. So I've got a couple different presentations on this. This it's a little bit cheeky, but I call it mistakes, things that we're not doing for the purpose of open houses. There's definitely two sides of the coin here. There are plenty of agents that I talk to that think that they are absolutely a waste of time. I think it's very situational, but any given opportunity to do an open house, although it's time consuming, it's literally a possibility for free leads, and who doesn't like that? So I'm a believer in open houses. I do think that the time and effort is paid off, or can pay off, if we really make sure that we're doing as much as possible to grasp, especially in the local community around the house. So let me come back up here. So let me just move this a little bit. All right. So some of these don't apply because they are, this is a kind of a broad slideshow that includes things that we don't do in this area. You can definitely do open houses on Mondays if the weather is nice, and even if it's a federal holiday. I have actually found to have some pretty good luck if you're not doing anything with your family, or can take a couple of hours to do an open house on a Monday, especially on a holiday. Obviously, if you're looking to pick up more open houses, talk to the agents that you see have a good amount of listings. You can certainly go into RAIN and look at our office listings and then reach out to those agents. Thomasina does a really good job, usually Wednesdays and Thursdays, of saying, hey, you know, here's the list on Facebook of new listings. Get in touch with those agents and see if you can do an open house for them. I like this one here, reaching out personally instead of just on social media for open house opportunities. All right, you can certainly do virtual open houses, whatever apps you might be using for a video. Definitely do that. You can take your time, maybe the day before, and do a virtual open house, do a walkthrough video, or you can even use the video that your, if your photographer makes a video for you and you have that, you can go ahead and post it to just try to garner some attention. I like to do, if I have the time to do a video before one, I do a little bit of a video, especially in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, where we have the neighborhood names, you know, a little bit away from the house, show the neighborhood, show yourself, you know, let them know the address in that neighborhood that you're going to be doing the open house, kind of in the same place that you would put that sign outside the neighborhood. And then I like to do a virtual kind of walk up to the property, and then maybe feature 3 or 4 rooms in the house that are really standout on a virtual walkthrough. I don't, you don't have to do all the bathrooms and things like that, but if it has an amazing kitchen, if it has an amazing view, try to highlight a couple of things. It doesn't need to be super long, but again, we're just trying to hook people to try to come into it. All right. And this one here, it's a little bit old school, but consider making the open house your office for a week. If it's a vacant home and a really nice property, I'll take like a card table and just bring some work with me, as well as all the marketing material. I'll leave the marketing material there, but there's nothing to say that you can't, for 3 hours a day, instead of working from home, if you do have Wi-Fi or like a hotspot, go ahead and work from the property. And who knows, you absolutely don't know, but at least you'll feel like you aren't wasting your time if you're getting some work done. So sign in the yard, obviously you can do sign with balloons, or you can order those large flags that's like 6-7 feet high. Those work really well. Directional signs, posting on social media, inviting sphere. This is one that I really find gets missed. Obviously, when the listing went live, the hope is that you're going to have some type of an email that you've sent out, either from KV Core or the new software that we have, List Reports, that we rolled out this week. That's really pretty phenomenal, and there is a video on that. But just grab one of those, drop it in your sphere, and send it out to everybody. It doesn't matter if they live here. It doesn't matter if they live in another town. Maybe they even know of somebody who's moving here, but take advantage of your database and throw it in there. And maybe even twice, one as a reminder that morning. And then, obviously inviting people to the open house. I love the idea of inviting former open house visitors as well. Because a lot of times when we meet people at an open house, they're just getting started. And obviously, if they're just getting started, maybe they don't have a realtor. If you're keeping in touch with them and inviting them to other open houses, or even if I've met somebody in an open house the following week, if I'm not doing one, but I do see that we have others going on in our firm, I'll send out that to them by email or by text and let them know, hey, if they're interested in going to that other open house, I'd be happy to go with them. Another way to just get in front of people. All right. Obviously, asking for the appointment, it is something that a lot of people feel uncomfortable doing until you've been at this for a while, but we all need to be pushed outside our comfort zones. So never be afraid to ask for an appointment while they're standing in front of you. Sometimes it's super busy and that is just not possible. That's why we want to capture their information. But if you have time, don't be afraid. A lot of times I feel like people who are home shopping and don't have an agent yet will be in front of a lot of agents who just never took the opportunity to go ahead and say, hey, I would love to take you to coffee, take an hour of your time, and maybe walk you through the home buying process. And I just find that that builds their trust. And before we send somebody documentation that says, hey, we're going to, go view houses and you've agreed to work with me, take the time to build that trust by explaining the home buying process to them. They want to feel like they're in front of an expert. Asking personal questions to build rapport. Of course, we always want to find a way, 6 degrees of separation. What do we have in common? Greet them on the front porch if you can, or as close to the front door. If you're doing an open house with another agent, I like to have one kind of, if the kitchen is a central area where people can come and go, have somebody stationed there and somebody stationed at the front door. Ooh, sorry about that. Let's go back to this one. Set the expectation when you meet that you'll be asking for an appointment before they leave the open house. That's just letting them know who you are. This is your job. This is your work. This is what you're passionate about. And you would love to be able to help them. And then, let them go view the house or walk them through. I'm going to skip through this. This is kind of a calendar to show a follow-up from open houses, but I can send these slides to you, but this is just an example. Okay, if we talk to somebody Sunday night, we talk to them Monday morning, how quickly do we want to get in front of them? So I need to change this. This is not arriving at least 30 minutes early. I personally like to arrive an hour to an hour and a half beforehand. If you are thinking about doing an open house and you're looking at it as only 2 hours out of your day, think you're kind of setting yourself up actually to waste your time, you really need to devote this as a very serious working day and put everything you have into it. So say, for example, I'm doing an open house on noon on a Saturday. I'm going to try to do 2 things. I want to arrive at least by 10:30 for a couple of reasons. Or the other thing is maybe on Friday, around the time that people are coming home from work, say between 5:30 and 6:30, that's a really good time to walk the neighborhood with flyers, introduce yourself, and maybe let them know I like to do what's called a good neighbor hour by inviting all the neighbors. I find that this cuts down on the looky-loos during the actual open house. We try to push people to try to come within the 30 minutes before or even 30 minutes after, but maybe just not the same time as the open house. Because you never know what neighbor just loves the neighborhood and is going to tell their friends and family, hey, there's an opportunity for you to come live close to me. So those are 2 other ways to get the words out. But also arriving an hour and a half early. I'm a big fan of either popping popcorn or making cookies actually in the oven of the home. Those 2 smells really are warm and welcoming. People walk into a home that smells like that and they immediately feel like it's a home. And I think that's really important, both in vacant and non-vacant and occupied homes. So I get cookies going in the oven. And I'll probably do a couple batches, maybe 2 batches, because then we're going to put them on a platter, maybe with some bottled water and offer them to people who come through. But we want to get them going. And then of course, even though that say the house was cleaned a couple of days before listing, get in there, make sure it's clean, it's fresh, open up the blinds, get the ceiling fans going. If the house has been stale for a couple of days, empty, make sure that everything is just fresh and clean and comfortable for people coming through. Make sure you have all of your sign-up sheets or app. And again, if you didn't catch the class that we did, or I think it was 2 weeks ago with Tanya on the open house app through KV Core, it's really amazing and easy to use. I'm a little bit old school and I like to do sign-in sheets, but you pick what's kind of best for your style. obviously lights on, like I said, pulling open the blinds. And then I bring a little Bluetooth wireless speaker with me just for some background noise. Again, we're going for making people feel like this is a home, not just an empty house. So I like, if I don't have time to actually physically preview similar homes, I like to go into the open house having studied what's going on in the neighborhood, what other homes are listed that might be a comp or close to a comp, what other homes are actually doing open houses that day. And I'm not afraid when people are leaving and we've had a good rapport with them and you got their information to go ahead and say, hey, there's an open house, 3 blocks away, or there's an open house in the next neighborhood. And then when you reach out to them, that night, first thing Monday morning, you have actually a talking point. Hey, tell me about that house that you saw. What did you think of it compared to this one? All about building that rapport. Following up. It's the easiest thing to blow off, but it's a little bit time consuming to make sure that you do it all, but it's so worth it. People really like to be touched upon afterwards as much as we might feel like they don't. So we can go ahead and set them up on drip campaigns, but I like to actually reach out. So if I call, I will follow that up with a text message. I might not always leave a voicemail, but I like to immediately follow up from a call that sent me to voicemail with a text message that says, hey, for me personally, I say, hey, it's Rebecca the Realtor. That was me calling your phone just now. Wanted to check in and touch base with you. How did you feel about the house that you saw, the open house today, or the multiple open houses? Then if you don't get anything back, work on a drip campaign. But keep trying to call. I will call usually between 6 and 10 times before I give up. But if you're calling and have them on a drip campaign, you definitely have a higher percentage, a higher possibility of getting in front of them for real. And then this one here, only set up open house visitors on a home search if they have met with you for a consultation. This is just for me a level of professionalism to show them, hey, I want to follow up with you how you felt about that open house. And a lot of times people will say, hey, can you send me a list of properties out there? And a lot of times what the public doesn't realize is that the MLS is not hiding anything from them. So you can certainly bring them to your search app, whatever you're using, if it's homes.com or Rain. But I don't like to set up a specific search until I've actually had the chance to sit down with them and say, before we do that, let's sit down and have a conversation. Obviously it's going to be a buyer broker conversation, but you also want to express to them that they really need to get pre-approved before you just are doing a home search, because nobody wants to break their hearts if they're only pre-qualified for 275 and they're up there looking at $400,000 houses. It's up to you to kind of filter that out and get them on board with where they can actually buy. Coming down to number 9, not inviting the neighbors. I kind of touched base with this a little bit beforehand, but blocking your calendar to door knock, so important. Trying to get information from neighbors. I do this constantly, even when I have showings. I'll stay at the house in my car for about 5 minutes after my clients leave. I'll stay in my car for about 20 minutes after the open house, because if there are people walking around in the neighborhood, I'll get out, I'll go over them, I'll introduce myself. Hey, I just showed the house, or I have this house listed. What do you think of the neighborhood? What's the pool like? Just people will speak to you while they're walking their dogs or have their kids outside. And that's a great opportunity for you to find out, hey, are you an owner? Are you thinking about moving? But more importantly, do you own or do you rent? And that rent conversation is an absolute gold mine. So get their information. Yes, we can hand out our cards all day, but that doesn't do anything to drive them back to us. We've got to capture their information. And then here's the inviting the neighbors 30 minutes early. Like I said, I like to call that the good neighbor hour. I don't know if anybody remembers, but back in the day, movie theaters used to do a good neighbor hour. And I think it was for like people 65 and older. That's where I stole the name from. Not seeing open houses as a way to actually attract sellers as will. So again, building your database and weekly contact, either by drip, by text, or by phone, by inviting the neighbors. Listen carefully to the open house visitors who describe their current living situation. there are people out there who need our help and they don't even know where to start. They could be facing foreclosure. They could be facing a short sale. A lot of times you can get in front of people who actually have a family member who needs some help. So having those conversations, ask for the listing appointment at the open house. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to say, I want a, listing appointment, but if you're having a conversation with a neighbor and they're really curious about the value of their home, they might ask you to send them what we would refer to as a CMA. And I very simply say, it would do me and you a complete disservice to do that without me actually seeing the home. That's how we get into their home. That's how we get in front of them in their house. So ask for the appointment to come and view their property so that you can then turn around and give them your best opinion of value. But doing it without seeing their home is an absolute waste of time for everybody. Show your value while door knocking and circle prospecting. Demonstrate how you proactively prospect for buyers. That's back to buyers. But a lot of open house possibilities are more about the neighborhood. I have at times, depending on the neighborhood, sent out postcards. I think that's a really good idea once the home is under contract. If not, then go ahead and do it for sold. And you would be amazed, especially if they've already seen you in the neighborhood and then they get that, they recognize your face on the postcard, and then you're touching base with them afterwards. It's all about staying in front of them. And this is just a review of what I call the mistakes: not actively lead generation for open houses, not incorporating the virtual open houses. With that, again, find your style, find a video app that works for you, or use the one from the photographer. But there's no reason really not to do something like that. Post that on your social media. You can even do it. I'm not super proficient with video, but you can do it as a story and just continue to keep putting that up there for 3 days leading up to it. Even going so far as to taking a couple of short videos with your phone, or just a series of photos and using them on your story. Not stepping up your game, obviously, not following through all of this, not asking for the appointment at the open house. Number 5, not practicing your scripts. I'm going to push anybody and everybody to go to Nikita's classes. They are literally magical. The way that she speaks to people and her ability to get in front of buyers and sellers is, bar none, some of the best I've ever seen in this business. So scripts are incredibly important. The more comfortable you are with them, even if you just find scripts online, I would encourage you to either go to her class, or what I did in the beginning before I knew Nikki is I practiced my scripts in front of my mirror, or even go so far as to tape yourself. It's kind of eye-opening, the things that you will catch and how quickly you can tighten up your scripts. Not arriving 30 minutes early. Again, I like to do an hour and a half. Previewing similar homes, showing your value, showing your market knowledge is really everything. Because we all know that there will be people out there who say, oh, I've been living here for 30 years. I know everything that's going on in the market. Well, they don't, because they're usually looking at Zillow. So another opportunity to show our values. Not following up with open house visitors. Again, always worth the time. This is free lead generation. I say free. The reality is that we do invest our time into it, but other lead generation costs a lot of money. And a lot of times the follow-up is the same. So if you're going to do it, take the free option. Not inviting neighbors to the good neighbor hour or to the open house, whichever you feel comfortable with. And not having conversations with local neighbors about potentially selling their homes for them. I can send you both by email if you want to dump that into actually, I think I have both of your email addresses. I'll send you this slideshow if that is helpful. And I know that was a lot and I talk really super fast. I apologize. Any questions I can help you with?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
Okay, it was pretty compact and quickly. What do you have? Oh, good. Thank you for your email addresses. And do you have a recommendation for? So I don't necessarily have a recommendation for a virtual open house platform, but I'm not the best with technology, that kind of technology. So I cheat and I use the video that comes out from the photographer if we're paying for that video walkthrough, Or I do, I've had a tendency to do either a series of pictures or a couple of like 15-second videos that I piece together and I throw on my stories. And actually next week, I'm going to be doing that for 2 homes that I have coming to the market next week. So once I actually post them, I can go ahead and send them to you. But I do recommend kind of doing a little bit of research about that and taking a look at KV Core, because I believe that they offer something for an open house platform, as well as this new list reports software that Bill Loudon brought into our office. Reach out to Bill or even reach out to his assistant, Maddie. She's kind of the one running the list reports classes. And Thomasina sent out a link, and it's on our Facebook page from this past Tuesday, where you can watch the video on list reports, and in the list reports app, you can go ahead and watch future videos. Like, there's incredible resources in there. I haven't dove into it yet for specifically the virtual house. Oh, cool. You already saw the part 1. When you go into the list reports app, all the way at the bottom, on the menu, it says resources. And in there, I believe that there's videos, and we can find out if there is a virtual open house option there. And then what I'll do is I'll reach out. I follow a couple of agents from other firms who do like amazing videos. And I believe that we actually have, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a walkthrough camera that you can use. It's here in our media room, but you can borrow it for the day, and you can kind of make your own videos using that. Reach out to Thomasina if either one of you hasn't done the 30 minutes, introduction to our social media room that Thomasina has set up. It's kind of like mind-blowing, the equipment that we actually have. And one of them I was really impressed with is this camera that you walk around with, and it stays stable, so it's not shaky. So bring another agent. I'd even be willing to experiment with that with you. And that way we can kind of have fun with it and test it, so that one person's holding the video while the other one is kind of like walking through the house. So if either one of you are interested in experimenting with that, I would love to as well. So hopefully by my next open house class, I'll have a better idea of some options for virtual open houses. But I'm old school. I use my iPhone to make videos. So, well, that is all I've got. I'm going to take down your email addresses and send you the slides for this. And then I also have slides for a more kind of in-depth one. It reviews the same information. It's just a different format. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to send both. But I hope you both have a great weekend and happy house hunting.
Thanks, Rebecca. I
No
appreciate it.
problem. Have a good weekend, guys.
Bye, you too.